for joining us tonight. We're going to start with just a quick review of locations and groups and talk a little bit about their different purposes. So locations are where the veterans wreaths are placed during a ceremony on National Wreaths Across America Day, while the sponsorship groups collect the sponsorships for the veterans wreaths. We encourage you to kind of think of the location as a funnel. The more sponsorship groups that are feeding into the funnel, the broader their reach, and the more likely you are to be able to fully cover your cemetery with a wreath for each veteran's grave. And that's the ultimate goal. We want to make sure that we're, able to honor and remember every veteran. As you reach out to your community and share with people about what you're doing and why, invite them to sign up as a sponsorship group. Anyone can get involved, individuals, families, organizations, businesses, they can all become sponsorship groups. The more people you get involved in the mission of Wreaths Across America, the bigger the impact you will make within your local community. If there are other organizations interested in getting involved, let them know about the different group plans that we have. And this is a great way to unite your community and work together for a common purpose. We have the 3-for-2 plan, the $5 back plan, and then we have the no plan that's listed here as well. Most of you are familiar with that, so we're not going to go into all those details. And if someone has questions you're not able to answer, connect them to their regional liaison team and they'll be happy to help them. So next we're going to talk a little bit about the wreathometer and the veterans grave count. So while your wreathometer is an excellent tool to engage your community, it's important to know the difference between your veterans grave count and your sponsorship goal. So your veterans grave count determines the maximum number of sponsored wreaths that we will ship you for your location. If you need more or less than your veterans grave count, you will need to communicate that with your regional liaison so that we can make arrangements for that. Typically, that happens when you need to account for columbarium. So you may not need as many wreaths because you can only put, one at the bottom row. Or sometimes people need more than the veterans' graves that are in that cemetery because they might have some people who are local who want to pick up a wreath for their loved one who's at a cemetery that's not participating and they want to go place a wreath there. So if you have any of those situations, just make sure you communicate that with your regional liaison so that we want to make sure that you get all the wreaths that you have sponsored. Your sponsorship goal does not determine how many wreaths will be shipped to your location. It's just a tool to help your community know what your goal is for coverage at that location. This may or may not match your veterans grave count. For locations that are never fully covered, set a goal that feels achievable and then increase it year after year until you eventually get a wreath sponsor for every veteran laid to rest at your location. That's particularly helpful for some of our larger locations. If you've got 80,000 veterans there, you might not be able to cover them all. So just make a goal, like we want to cover this many sections this year and make that goal achievable so people can watch that wreathometer fill up throughout the year as they continue to send sponsorships in. The wreathometer on your location page is linked to your sponsorship goal and is an excellent way to motivate your community to support you and sponsor veterans wreaths. It will continue to turn green as the wreaths come in until it's completely filled up when you've reached that goal. You can adjust that goal on your wreathometer at any time throughout the year by going to the registration to-dos on your dashboard. You can feel free to bump it up if support's coming in quickly or move it down if you want to make it more achievable there. And this wreathometer, it is live. So it's going to reflect if someone places an order, it's going to reflect almost immediately. If we have a lot of orders coming in that day, keep in mind that it might take up to 24 hours to refresh, but typically it's pretty instant. But because that is live, you're in your dashboard, your wreath count report, it is not live. It updates once a day. So don't ever, don't panic if you log in and you're like, wait a minute, this says this number and this says that number. If you give it a day, usually it's going to even out and you'll see where those orders came in. And if you ever have questions about that, again, you're going to reach out to your regional liaison team and we'll be able to help decipher that for you. You'll also want to create a wreath day planning checklist for your location. Start by scheduling a meeting with the cemetery staff to get their approval for the wreath laying ceremony. Discuss logistics for the event while remembering that they're the host and we are the guest. If any concerns come up, let us know and we can help you brainstorm how to address them. Make sure parking is easy to find, close to the location, and free or at least validated. Larger locations might want to consider busing people in, and you could contact the local school district to see if they will provide buses in that instance. Start planning the details of your ceremony, line up speakers, decide how you want to handle the logistics of unloading the trucks, parking on wreath day, distributing wreaths, placing grave specifics, and wreath cleanups. A lot of the cemeteries that, there's a lot of cemeteries that are very small. I know the one that I personally go to, it's like a little dirt road, one way in, one way out. So obviously not ideal for parking. So these are things that you want to think about because, the idea is to get a lot of the community out. So you want to make sure that if they do all come out, there's a place for them to go and to be able to get in and out easily. Begin piling a list of individuals and groups to invite. Involve as many people in your community as possible. If you're not sure where to start, reach out to local veterans groups for suggestions. You may want to plan flyovers, processions with Patriot Guard riders, color guards. Reach out to schools and other organizations in your community, and don't be afraid to think big. You can make the event as large as you wish. All we just ask is that you keep it open to the public and it remains non-political. Make sure you reach out to your local rabbi to discuss the best way to honor and include Jewish veterans' graves that may be buried in your cemetery while respecting their culture. Let them know that individual members of the Jewish community may request a wreath, even if the veterans' wreaths are not being placed as a whole. Consult with the cemetery staff to ensure a special requests are fulfilled for those wishing to not receive a wreath, as well as those in the Jewish community who may want one. And I know that there's a lot of things on here we're talking about. Some of you, if you've got a cemetery that's got, 8 graves, you may be like, oh, flyover, I don't think that's quite for us. But we got a lot of locations here, different sizes. So kind of throw it all out there to you and you kind of pick what fits your location best. So how can you get more support this year for your location? First, you want to make sure you're communicating the veterans grave count with your sponsorship groups so that they can all work together with the goal of fully covering your location. Um, Make sure you're letting them know how many veterans graves you've got, where you're at. Send out regular emails to your sponsorship groups to let them know of upcoming events, planning meetings, or where you're at with your grave coverage. You don't know how many will actually come on to help you if you don't ask them. So just share the information. Hey, we're having a meeting tonight. Anybody is welcome to show up. You might have none of the groups may show up, or you might have, more than what you need. But I think it's always better to have more volunteers to help than not enough. You also want to make sure you bookmark our volunteer resource page, and we talk about that a lot on here. Bookmark that on your internet browser and become familiar with it and use those resources to engage your community. There are a ton of resources on that page that you can use throughout the year. You can also use the Wreath Day Planning Checklist in our 2023 Locations and Sponsorship Groups Handbook, and consider how you want to delegate tasks to your sponsorship groups. The more that are involved, the more involved the groups feel, the more involved they'll want to be. Schedule planning meetings for your sponsorship groups to attend, delegate tasks for them to complete in preparation for Wreath Day and/or Day of Logistics. Create a Wreaths Across America Facebook page for your location and use it to connect supporters in your community and ask for help with tasks that aren't covered by your sponsorship groups. Also, you should reach out to local businesses to see if they can donate or let you borrow supplies or equipment for Wreath Day, and in return, Wreaths Across America can provide them with an in-kind donation form. And they may also want to sponsor wreaths. Again, you don't know unless you ask. And don't forget to say thank you and highlight sponsorship groups and volunteers that go above and beyond. If you have printed programs, it's a great opportunity to highlight local businesses that maybe donated chairs, tents, maybe they donated orange safety vests for your people who are parking people to use. Lots of different things that they can do there. So next, we recommend that you create a team of volunteers to support you all year round and on Wreath Day. Planning the wreath laying ceremony is a lot of work, as you guys all know. Your work year round, you work year round to make it a memorable event for all who attend. But no matter how organized you are, it's impossible to coordinate the entire event on your own without getting help from people and keep your sanity. Some of you may be able to do it, but you're probably a little crazy come wreath day. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Some things you may want to include in the planning process is to setting up on wreath day, directing traffic, passing out wreaths to anyone who attends and wants to participate, placing grave specific requests for those who aren't able to attend, leaving the cemetery clean after the event. That is a big one. Please don't let the cemetery call me afterwards with a list of things that were not picked up, because as guests of the cemetery, they can say, hey, you're not allowed to have a ceremony here next year. And that's obviously, we want to make sure we're honoring and respecting those grounds there, those veterans that are there. So please make sure that you are cleaning up after the event, especially if you have a large group. Sometimes, it's not intentional, but if you have a large group with young kids, some trash may get left behind. So it's always a good idea to kind of walk the cemetery afterwards and make sure that everything is cleaned up. And then make sure you always plan for cleanup for the wreaths for the time that the cemetery has designated. It's important to know that all the veterans' wreaths are passed out to anyone who shows up and wants to help lay wreaths. If they aren't set aside for individual sponsors or groups unless they are sponsored as a grave specific request and listed on the grave specific report. And this is kind of just the big one as far as distribution. Make sure you've got someone, if you're staging the wreaths, have someone there handing them out so someone's not getting a whole box and taking to place them. Because what you don't want is for one person to be able to place 10 wreaths and someone else meanwhile place none. So just try to have a plan of how you're going to distribute those so that everyone gets to place those equally. So after Wreath Day, take time to reflect on the good that happened in your community to make the wreath laying ceremony such a success. And, get a little relaxed time because it's, you've been working really hard up till then. And this is a great time to share stories and pictures with us on social media. You can issue press releases and just, thank those who helped. Be sure to communicate with your contact at the location about when they would like the volunteers to clean up the wreaths, and then reach out to your community to gather help. You may dispose of the wreaths however you feel is best for your community. Many locations find a lot of support from their local recycling disposal companies, and if arranged early enough in the year, they sometimes are able to get those services donated. You want to make sure you also send out thank you messages. You can do that through the system. Send out thank you messages to your sponsorship groups, to the people who sponsored the wreaths, to the volunteers that came out and helped place them, and highlight any local businesses who helped provide wreath sponsorships or in-kind donations as well. And next, we have some exciting news to share with everyone. So last but not least, we are very excited to share that we have new boxes this year. If you guys have done this before in the past, you may have noticed that sometimes the square boxes became a little squished after they've been on the trucks. If they got rained on, they would be a little crumpled. Sometimes the wreaths would be a little square shaped. They'd have to fluff them up a little bit more. And we will be this information right here with the box size and all that, that is something that we will be sending out as a PDF and sharing with you guys. So don't worry about having to try to write it all down to keep track of it. we'll get it out to you guys. The new boxes will have 12 wreaths to a box. They'll weigh about 40 pounds, and the cardboard is sturdier so that the boxes won't get crushed in that transportation like we talked about. And the idea is this will actually keep those wreaths that nice round shape so they won't have as much fluffing out to do on your wreath day. So for those locations that have replacing, 10, 20,000 wreaths, you can't unbox them all before wreath day. This is going to be huge for you guys because now you won't have to have a square wreath until it settles down. So we're really excited about this, and we're glad that our vendors took the initiative to get these new boxes for us. So everything else is the same as far as like how it fits on the truck, because it's still the same number of wreaths on a pallet. But the boxes, it is going to be 12 per box. So we want to make sure that when we are offloading boxes from the truck, we are taking that into consideration. You always only want to take the box count that's on your bill of lading. And if you ever have a question with your box count that's being given to you, if you're like, oh, I think I should have more, please don't take more. Call your liaison. And if you can call your liaison while the truck is still there, a lot of times we can figure out exactly what's going on. So we can say, hey, yeah, actually you can take some more off there, or no, we have another truck coming your way that's going to be bringing them, because we don't ever want to take more and then leave someone at the end of the truck short, or with no wreaths, which, does happen. And nobody wants to be that person getting no wreaths. So just make sure you're always double checking that with your liaison if you have any questions. And that's all I have to present today. Now I just wanted to, use the rest of this time to open it up to let you guys as the location coordinators, especially we have, experienced people who've done this for a few years, to kind of share ideas with other location coordinators on just, anything as far as getting groups involved, or logistics, wreath day plans, and different tips, suggestions that maybe we just need to make sure that we're taking into account.
I'm Rebecca Rutz. I'm brand new site coordinator for Biloxi National Cemetery in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I have lots of questions. I'm going to ask a couple of general ones, and then I'm probably going to need to talk to my liaisons to get some more specifics. The first one is, how do I get to the dashboard? I accidentally got to it today and registered, and now I can't get back to it.
So you actually, if you go right to wreathsacrossamerica.org, and you go to the menu in the right-hand corner and go down to the bottom, you'll see a place where it says manage my pages. And if one of my liaisons can actually probably drop the link right in the chat for you, that would be super helpful.
Ooh, yes. I hope they'll leave it up there a while so I can get it.
Yep. It's in there right now. So
yeah, I see it. The other question is, I missed the April and the May webinars. Is there a way to view those on the website?
Yep. So we actually post, if you go to that volunteer resource page that we mentioned bookmarking, we always have the last months on there. So if you go there now, you'll see May's. When you go there, that takes you to our volunteer YouTube channel. And on there, we have years worth of recordings on there. So lots of recordings. You can see all the good and the bad ones. We've gotten a little better over the years.
All right, my last, I know how to get to the volunteer resource page, but I couldn't find what I thought I was looking for. The last question I have deals with publicity. I've read the regulations about the publicity in the agreement. I'm just looking to what it's called. The rule, what is it?
Like the media policies?
Policies and procedures, the coordinator's policies and procedures. And there seems to be a lot of do's and don'ts with publicity. Is there any objection to a site coordinator going out into the community to talk to people, to go on the local TV station or radio stations or visit civic organizations and talk about the program?
No, we absolutely encourage that. We just want to make sure that we're always using, when we're reaching out to media and stuff, that we're using things that are on brand with our logo and our mission. And so if you ever have something that's in question, you can send that to your liaison. We can connect you with our PR person, especially when it comes to sending things to the local news stations. But as far as like going out and into your community, you're welcome to do that. And on that volunteer resource page, we do have a ton of presentations that you can use when you're going out there to use as talking points. And Tara did drop the link for directly to that YouTube channel in the meeting chat for you.
Trying to figure out how to save these.
If you click on them and it like will open up in your browser, usually there's a little star in the corner of your browser and you can make that like a favorite or bookmark it, so you can reference it later.
Okay, oh, that's one.
All right. Did you have any other questions? If not, I'm going to hop on over to someone else.
I probably do, but I don't know what they are. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. We have another Betty that's got her hand raised.
Hi, this is Betty from Eastern Oregon. Last year was our first year, and regarding the publicity, I was talking to a reporter here in town regarding my Daughters of the American Revolution group, and I mentioned to her about the Wreaths Across America, and I knew I was going to be talking to her about the DAR, and I brought my flyer about the Wreaths Across America. Anyway, she was able to contact the publicity people, and she ran the most absolutely gorgeous front page. It wasn't an ad, it was a story about the Wreaths Across America, and because of that, we got a wonderful donator who bought a large chunk of what we ended up having for our location. And it was the most wonderful experience of my life. So you guys that are new, you're gonna love being a participant in this. But anyway, I wanted to let you know about the advertising. Those responsible newspaper or whatever people will look to Wreaths Across America, and they were able to give our reporter wonderful information and pictures. It was a beautiful, beautiful front page story. And so anyway, it made our whole experience more than wonderful. It's the best experience of my life. And the reason I wanted to say something was to the location coordinators that live in snowy areas. It was going to be 8 degrees that morning, but it came up to 18, but oh, it was so cold. Anyway, we also had snow on the ground, and I thought to myself, gosh, I wish I'd have thought to bring a stiff broom so that we could have located the headstones better, to see the other veterans that were there on their hands and knees brushing away the snow. I thought there's no way I'm going to forget that this year. So I wanted to share that with anybody else that lives in a potentially snowy area. You might want to bring a broom or several of them or whatever, depending on the size and need. But I just thought I'd throw that out there for you guys. But it is more than worth it. If you love vets,
Yeah.
you're going to.
And we do have something that we have found other locations that live in very snowy areas. A great thing to do is to use some surveyor flags. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're tall enough to accommodate snow, but use some type of marker to mark veterans graves if you are in a cemetery that is not all veterans. So that way, you're not having to dig in the snow quite as much to be able to find those, especially if it is a cemetery that has flat headstones. So I appreciate that, Betty. That's some great feedback. And we have a ton of press release templates that can be used in the handbook, again, on that volunteer resource page. And we have our PR team that's always happy to help. If you have a radio or a news station that reaches out to you and says, hey, I would love to run a story about what you guys are doing, and you're like, I don't really know exactly what to say or what to do here, reach out to your regional liaison team. We'll connect you to our PR team and make sure that we get you a story that's gonna, get you some attention in that area. Because we want to make sure the community knows. We want to make sure that they know so that they can come out and, share in this. And a lot of times someone may come, they may hear about your ceremony. They come out, they are on wreath day. Maybe they didn't sponsor a wreath. And this is another reason why we want to make sure that when those wreaths are distributed, you're not like, oh, hey, well, you didn't sponsor a wreath, so you don't get to place a wreath. Because if someone comes out and they place a wreath, I guarantee you they're going to sponsor a wreath the next year. They're going to say, how can I help to make sure that I'm helping honor a veteran next year? And you're going to gain a sponsorship. So you want to make sure you're getting the word out there. Don't worry about, what if I have more people than what I have wreaths? If you do, that's a great opportunity to tell them, hey, we need you all to play a part next year so that no veteran is forgotten. And then Brenda Kaesler, I see you've got your hand raised. So if you want to go ahead.
I do have my hand raised. I finally figured out how to do it on my phone. I'm looking for a way to be able to determine the effectiveness of my marketing strategies. Now, I know that sponsorship groups can somehow delineate people within the sponsorship group. Like if a scout troop has a sponsorship group, they can determine which scout did how many wreaths, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep.
Could we do the same thing and instead of assigning people, assign a marketing strategy to it? Like if I'm going to be on the USS Midway, let's say, could I have one be on the USS Midway, get that code, and then be able to determine how many wreaths come from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing is those are what we call the supporting sites.
Right.
And they only live underneath a sponsorship group.
Right.
It is something that we're hoping to be able to make available to under locations, but for now we don't have that. So you would just need to use it through one of your groups. But yeah, you could certainly you would just go on, you create a page, you can name it, you can change the name. So usually if it's a Civil Air Patrol, they're going to name it, Julie Bright squad, cadet page. You can name it for an event. So yeah, that would be a great opportunity for you to use, because you would still be able to get a QR code for that specific link. The only thing with those links is they're not a short little, here's this page, here's this name. We cannot customize those links at all. So you would just want to use a QR code with that as much as you could, because otherwise it's going to be quite lengthy.
You could do Bitly, couldn't you?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't want to say yes. I'm sure maybe you could, but
yeah. Okay.
I think
cool.
you definitely could use a QR code with it.
Okay. So it does give us a unique page. All right. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's a great idea. All right, Valerie, you've got your hand raised.
Hi, Julie. Thank you very much for tonight's information. Two people that I have added to my team. One is a school liaison. I have a woman who works in our local school, and she has posted in the faculty room the web address for the Teach resources. And our teachers have been using all of the PowerPoint presentations and story lessons and everything the past year, and they're looking forward to there's back to school lessons that are coming up for September. So our teachers are really getting involved working with those resources. And the other person I've put on my team is a nursing home liaison. we have some veterans in our nursing home, and she makes sure that the colored wreaths from the school get there along with a American flag. And we also send a photo of the commemorative wreath for that veterans branch of service. So and we have a woman who makes chocolates, so she sends a little package of chocolates. But we send a little care package to the veterans in the nursing home, and I really don't have to do much. These liaisons, they just take over and take care of the school and the nursing home, and it's very much appreciated. So people might want to, consider finding someone to do that too.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, you never know unless you ask, that you might have in the more people you're reaching out to and including in your plannings and saying, "Hey, I need someone who has the talent to do this. Can somebody help me out?" You're going to have people who are going to step forward and say, "Yeah, I'll help do that." Um, so, and I'm sure our teach team will be very excited to hear that you guys are utilizing that. And if you haven't checked out our teach page recently, there's been a lot of updates to it. There's a ton of resources on there, and Stephanie did drop that link in our chat. I encourage you to go and check out those resources. I know most schools are out for the summer or getting out for the summer, but definitely make sure you're sharing those with the teachers as we're going back into the school year in the fall, which is a great opportunity. Also, it's when a lot of the fundraising picks up. So get that word out there to your schools, and you can also encourage them to sign up as sponsorship groups and use that money, that $5 back program, to help fund some of their field trips and stuff like that. So, all right, do we have anybody else got any questions or anything to share? Hi, Cindy. I
Hey,
see your hand raised.
Hi, Julie.
Hello. Thanks for
I,
joining us.
I am Cindy Bentley Roberts. I am the co-location coordinator with Florida National Cemetery in Florida, Bushnell. And I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts. I am a larger location. I know that we have both on and the audience tonight, but we've heard mainly from a lot of the smaller locations. And one of our largest details that we do for our supporters, for people that want to volunteer, is for our truck unloads. And I just wanted to speak on that for just a few minutes, because I know that that will speak to a lot of the larger locations. We pull in for our volunteers with the trucking companies first. We always float that idea out to their volunteers to come in. A lot of the company employees have not ever worked with Reese Across America before, and it's a great opportunity for them to get vested in and see what we do on site. And then if they decline and do not have anyone that wants to help, then we pull from our supporting groups, our larger supporting groups. Typically, we start at the top, go down, and whoever steps forward and volunteers. We've had a range, American Heritage Girls Group, all the way up to Sea Cadets, to Walmart employees, et cetera, et cetera. So we have lots of different teams that come in. Typically, we will rotate them, but we have had a couple of our trucking companies that have specifically requested certain volunteers to come in year after year, because they're just so dependable and they really like working with them. So we do unload 8 trucks on site for our event. So we do need those specific volunteers to be helpful in unloading, and to just make sure that those wreaths get into the volunteer hands that are designating them out. So just a couple ideas that I just wanted to throw out there with teams to ask to come in for volunteer help.
Absolutely. And that's also a great reminder for me, Cindy, because I forgot to share this earlier, but I did want to let everybody know that we are going to be, for our locations that are 5,000 veterans graves and up, we're going to be having what we call our large location webinar. We had a first one last year, and we've got another one coming this year. And we've got some great resources that we've gotten from Brenda Kaiser was a big part of putting that together for us. And then our own liaison, Janelle, who did Jefferson Barracks National previously. She's helped give some feedback to it as well. That is going to be June 27th. So the 27th of this month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are actually going to be sending an email out tomorrow about that. So if you are a larger location, stay tuned for that. We are hoping to, at some point for some of the small locations, maybe do some more breakouts for that. But for now, you know, it's a lot of work, guys. So for now, those large locations, because there is a lot of logistics that goes in behind that for some of those bigger ones. So we will certainly send that out shortly. Cindy, Vet Nelson wants to know what your biggest fundraiser is for your location.
That's a good question. We don't have a specific fundraiser that we do. We, just to kind of give you an understanding of what our location looks like, we have 130,000 plus veteran sites. And we, last year, our goal was 50,000 sponsored wreaths. We placed 42,000. I'm just rattling these numbers off the top of my head, hoping I get them close to. So the numbers are really collaborated. Mainly, the largest is we have 140 sponsorship groups that are attached to our location, and that's where our meat and butter comes from. We do, everybody does a specific fundraiser or 2 or 3 for their fundraising, their sponsorship group. And we see that bulk of it come in from our sponsorship groups.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Judy, you've got your hand raised.
Keith was before me. Just being polite.
Okay. Sorry, it's hard when they just popping up there. Keith, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any questions per se. I've been doing this is my 4th year, and we've had a lot of success. Just a few suggestions for the newer coordinators.
Mhm.
Rely on your community, contact the ROTCs, junior ROTC at the high school, church youth groups. I've got probably 4 or 5 schools that are participating. I have a junior ROTC that does my honor guard. I went online and found a bugler and a bagpiper. You can look under buglers across America, and you might find one that's in your area. I just started posting on the local marketplaces until somebody responded, and neither one of them charged me anything to come out. I contacted Patriot Guard writers. They come out. Last year, the Camden, South Carolina is a very big in the American Revolutionary reenactment stuff. So I had one of the groups volunteer to come out and fire cannons as part of the honoring at the end, with the fire and the volley, the taps, and they're more than willing to help. And I just started sending emails and calling banks, local businesses. Got one TV station that's donated $500. Duke Energy's donated money. Local businesses, Kroger, all of these organizations have grant available, and there's a group in Reach Across America headquarters that works to get people grant money. Walmart's got grants. I mean, there's just plenty of money out there.
Absolutely.
And there's no limit to the imagination. So start calling people and see what you can find out.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about Facebook, using Facebook like the marketplace, like where people are like selling stuff, to put that out there as an ask. But that's a great idea too, because people are always out there. That's very much local community. So that's a great suggestion. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yep.
I love the cannon idea.
The what?
I love the Canon. I love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
You
It
did.
was
Did you
great.
get videos and pictures that you can, send
I
to us?
went and
Because
got
that's cool.
photos. I work for the VA, and we just got a new visual information specialist, and she's volunteering to come out and shoot video this year of our
Oh,
ceremony.
awesome. Okay, well, I'll be waiting for that.
Yes,
So
I will upload whatever I can. So that's just
Awesome.
a few suggestions of things I have found successful. And one of the slides back was make a plan.
Mhm.
I spent 41 years in the Army. Everything we do, we make a plan. You have an SOP that says what step 1 is, what step 2 is. Write it out, put all your contacts on that, how far out you have to contact them. And so that if something happens to me, my co-coordinator can pick up that SOP and know exactly where to continue.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
those are my suggestions.
Well, thank you, Keith. I appreciate that. Those are great suggestions. All right, Judy, do you want to go now?
So I had a question for Cindy before you suggested or said about the large location webinar. This is my first year at Fort Logan in Colorado. And she said she gets 8 trucks, and then she said how many graves. It's like, I have 150 some thousand graves, but we normally only get 20,000 wreaths. So I'm really like, how do I get that number up? So that we cover that whole cemetery is what I'm really like, oh, I need to know this.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's, it's an uphill, climb. It takes a lot of our locations that are getting, 40,000 wreaths or more, it's taken years to kind of build that up, keeping those sponsors. I think a big thing is communicating with your people who sponsored last year, because, they may have heard about it somewhere last year and they don't think about it this year. If they don't see it again, they may not do it, even though if you send them an email through the system, they might go, oh yeah, that's right. So there's definitely, we have some messaging stuff, and we're actually working on some upgrades in our messaging right now. So don't rush out and send messages out tomorrow, because you might break my system. But coming soon, hopefully next month, we will have a webinar kind of showing everybody some of that new messaging, and it's a little bit more powerful, and it won't cap out for some of our larger locations where it was like capping people out at 1,000 messages at a time. That is getting,
Nice.
that's what's kind of getting fixed right now. So I definitely encourage you to send messages out to previous sponsors. Your liaisons can help you with that. And definitely join us on that large location webinar, because I think that there'll be a lot of resources where you'll hear other people dealing with similar issues there. So,
And then my other question was, when people do show up, because we have a set time when we can start laying the wreaths, how do other coordinators deal with people that come up earlier and are like very demanding that, well, I sponsored a wreath and I want that wreath now? How do other people deal with that to not upset those people so that they would want to come back the next year and volunteer?
I was waiting for anybody have any feedback. I mean, I think you have to kind of take into, every situation's a little different. So it depends on if they're just like, hey, I've got like an appointment I got to go to later, I'm in a hurry. I mean, no, like we're going to have the ceremony and then we're going to place the wreath, and you're going to have to just wait. If someone is, I got to go to the hospital, like someone was in an accident, I'm in a hurry, but I really want to place this wreath. I mean, I probably would let them just take the wreath and place it. But you have to consider the fact too, especially as a larger location, that if you start handing out one wreath, you better be prepared to start handing them all out, because people are going to start just taking them. So I think, it's just, no, this is the time. Make sure you're communicating that time as far as like when you're going to be placing them. And unfortunately, you're not going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be someone who's going to have feedback that's probably not positive. And, I think you just do the best you can, and the bigger masses are going to be okay.
Right, because last year I was a location, or not a location coordinator, an area volunteer. And I had a gentleman get in my face about it. I'm like, that's what I was told. Ceremony starts at this time. I am not distributing any of my wreaths until that time. And he said he wasn't coming back to volunteer again. I'm like, sorry.
I mean, if that's how you feel, maybe you're not there doing it for the right reason. So, you know, and
Because
you
it's a
also have,
ceremony.
yeah, and you also have to, you know, consider a lot of times this can be a very emotional thing for people. So if someone is there and they're there to place a wreath on their loved one's grave, it can be something that's very emotional for them. So try to, you know, not take it personal and kind of take a step back and know that they're not meaning it to be that way. A lot of times they say things in anger, and most likely if they say, "Oh, I'm not coming back next year," if they're there for the right reason, they're there to honor their loved one, more than likely they're going to come back next year. They just need some time to kind of, you know, they had an expectation and it was different than what they thought. So they just kind of got to get over the disappointment. But you know, hang in there. And I know Fort Logan, you guys have, there's been some struggles out there, so just hang in there.
And the new, I'm not sure what his title is, that took over at Fort Logan, he is amazing. And that is also his goal, is to have every grave site there at Fort Logan eventually covered with a wreath. So
Awesome.
that's awesome that we're on the same page.
That's great. Well, so we'll see you on the June 27th. We'll get that information out for you tomorrow. And then Grody, I'm going to hop over to you because you've had your hand out for a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the pallets this year. You know, I noticed there's 12 to a box. And are those wrapped? And if they are, and how can we get into them to get the ones that we would have left over? Because I'm looking at possibly at mine, and you may end up having to break into another box to finish out what you need. Because with 12 of them in a box, it's going to make a difference how many you get.
So we always are going to like round up. So it's just like our ceremony only locations, they're going to have some few extra wreaths this year than what they normally would have. We always we're basically going to take your wreath count. We're going to add your 8 wreaths to that count, and we're going to divide that by 12 and then round up from there. So we're never going to break into the box to take partials out, because that's just going to cause confusion and takes quite a bit of time when you're trying to unload, you know, a lot of boxes. You're just going to get a few extras, which is okay, because then you can set those aside in case something were to happen. Maybe one gets taken by a deer, or, you know, gets removed or messed up or whatever. You have a few extras to work with. As far as the pallets being shrink wrapped, that's kind of the same. It's always been. It really depends on the warehouse they're coming from and the truck. Most of them, they usually just use, they're usually not completely shrink wrapped. They're usually just kind of like tied down. But so if you have specific needs, if you're like, hey, we don't have a means to handle this, if they're completely shrink wrapped or whatever, if you communicate that with your liaison, we can certainly reach out to our trucking team to see if we can find out who's bringing them, what warehouse they're coming from, and then we would have a better idea. But I cannot tell you just off the top of my head, because we have so many different cross docks and stuff that they're coming from, and different trucks that are hauling them, that there's a lot of different factors.
No, that's okay. With what you explained there about the boxes and that the shrink wrap, they get mangled on the trucks anyway because of the movement and everything anyway. But the last couple of years, they've been pretty good when we've got ours. So, but I just wanted to check on the new boxes, because it looks like it's really going to help keep them in good shape over what it has been. So, and thank you.
They're a lot thicker than the boxes we've had before. These are like a lot sturdier, and you see they have that nice hole up in the top, so it's just going to let the air flow through them. So we're really excited. They're going to be really good this year. All right. Do we have anyone else that has any other questions? We have a few minutes left.
Julie, this is Valerie. One thing that came to mind, people might want to look online for a local Rolling Thunder chapter. Rolling Thunder is the motorcycle group of vets, and their mission is to keep POW MIAs in the public eye. And I invited them last year, and a group of about 8 from a local chapter came, and they were honored to hang the commemorative, the ceremonial wreath for POW MIA. And one of them even said a few words at our ceremony. So that might be a excellent group. They also, of course, donated money for sponsorship of about 10 wreaths. So that might be a group you want to include, and it really meant a lot to them to be included.
Yep, absolutely. It's a great suggestion. And you guys can go on Google and Google, veterans groups near me, and it's going to pull up a whole list of, veterans groups that are meeting in your area, American Legions, VFWs, you've got Rolling Thunder, Patriot Guard Riders, all those. They're great resources for people who can, come out and help participate, help you raise money, help you with wreath day logistics. So it's a great suggestion. Jan, you've got your hand raised, so we're going to hop over and see what you want.
Yeah, I was going to say I have a small cemetery. We have like 135 veterans out here, and I live just outside of a small city. Of course, they use all the Patriot Guards and all of that in their city cemetery, which they have like over 800 in their city cemetery. So that leaves me basically no one to use for my small cemetery. So I got the SCV, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and they put they did our honor guard, and they have and they also have a I'm sorry. And they have a cannon that they provide and do a salute to the veterans. They also, and then they help us with laying the wreaths out for us. So, for smaller communities that don't have access to anyone, they, try your SCV in the area. There's probably one someplace close by. Your SRT, Sons of the Republic of Texas, and your SARs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many organizations. Like I said, you can go on and you can Google, veterans organizations near me, and there is a ton that you can find locally. In my own where I'm at, there are 2 larger cemeteries, a state veterans and a military post cemetery, that most of the people go out to them. And for a long time, no one really came. It was just kind of me and my family that went out and placed wreaths at a cemetery, small little community one. And there was a sorority that got involved, and they had several people who were, previous military, and they kind of took on the ceremony and doing all that. So there's lots of different options too. I know that can make things a little more challenging when you have multiple cemeteries in the area, especially if you have some bigger ones, because people say, oh, I'm going to go to the state cemetery because it's, this big cemetery and they do a big thing. So yeah, there's definitely lots of different options, and those are some great suggestions there. Someone asked a question about if we are able to get sponsorship money from national sponsors, and I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. I think maybe you're talking if we get corporate donations nationally, are different cemeteries able to get funds from that? And the answer is yes. It just depends on the need and where that donor has asked us to allocate. So usually they will tell us where they want it to split up to. We do have our unallocated wreaths that many of you know about that we will use for locations in need. There's several factors that kind of go into where we send them to, and that's kind of based off of if they will fit on the truck. If your wreaths are being shipped small pack, which is through FedEx or UPS, because maybe you only have a small number of wreaths, and we don't have a truck that can take them to you, we would not what we would probably you give those to someone else just because we want to be able to utilize that donated trucking to send those wreaths out. And it's also again based on needs. So if you are short, you know, you have 100 wreaths, you know, left to fully cover your cemetery of 4,000, you know, veterans, we're probably going to try to, you know, get them to you because you're so close to fully covering. So there's a lot of different factors that kind of play into that specific thing. And if I completely misunderstood that, feel free to hop in and ask so I understand what it was you're asking.
I'd like to comment to Jan. We have a small cemetery. I have 2 American Legions and 1 VFW in our town. None of them would talk to me last year. After several times, they didn't. I had the JROTC post the colors. I wrote letters to each of the ones that we were giving free wreaths, and I asked them if they would like to lay the wreath on their family's stone. I got wonderful response, and they asked how they could sponsor some this year. So I found real good luck with that if you have trouble finding anybody.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we've got the sponsorship. It's just a matter of getting, you know, people out there for the honor guard and things like that was where I had the issues with. And but since I got the SCB coming out, they were out last year, and then this year we had Boy Scouts out the first year, but our boys have outgrown or chose not to go back to Boy Scouts, and we didn't have anyone for last year. So that was our problem last year. And that's when I went to our SCB camp and asked them if they would do it, because we had 2 police officers who came, but then they had to leave during the middle of the ceremony because they had an emergency come up. So, you know, it was just, you know, like I say, it's a small town, and, you know, we probably have 20,000 people in town, and our community probably has, well, their graduating class had about 20 people graduate. So, you know, like I say,
Yeah,
it's
small communities. We have a lot of those around here. I apologize. I was just told that Bob, you had your hand raised for a little bit, and I'm sorry, I can't see all the video screen. So if you have a question and you got your hand raised and I didn't see it, just go ahead and holler at me. I apologize.
No problem.
But Bob, if you wanted to go ahead and just speak up.
I had a comment to make. I used a volunteer fire department for the first time last year, and they got on site and they abused their they placed trees when they shouldn't have. In fact, it's the 4th year that we've coordinated all our cemeteries to start our ceremonies at the same time, so we won't have people running around placing wreaths that we don't want to have wreaths placed ahead of time.
Oh, okay. Yep. So they kind of helped guard those wreaths for you a little bit for the distribution.
Right.
That's a great idea. We've actually, our state veteran cemetery here locally, they use the local fire department, help store the wreaths for them. And then they actually help bring them into the cemetery the day of. So great resource, you know, as well, like the volunteer fire departments, the local police, definitely reach out to them. Those are great resources to use too.
Yeah, you just gotta keep an eye on them. One in that small cemetery, he got nervous. I went out and placed all the wreaths, and then when our small Cub Scouts showed up to place wreaths, they were all out. So I've spoken with them, and won't happen in the future.
Yeah, keep them in line there. All right. Do we have anybody else that has any questions? Because I know it's a little after 9. So we want to give everyone back their evening back. So if anybody has any other questions,
I have a
let us
question.
know. Go ahead.
Okay, I just have one, I'll make this fast. The time of the ceremony. Okay, we're saying it's at noon, so is there, what's the leeway on that? Like, is it 11 o'clock Central Time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time?
So, the idea is we want to kind of make sure we're all doing it on the same day, and we're doing it in unison together. Now, of course, as we've grown over the years, it's a little bit harder for us to all do it at the same time, especially when we're kind of spread out, across all the different time zones. But typically, most people, West Coast, they're going to start theirs at 10 or 11, because you want to make sure that it's a time when people are going to come out as well. So there's definitely some leeway there. We just want to make sure that we're all doing this on this, the same day. So we're all doing it in unison on the same day, whether that's 12 o'clock your time or 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Just make sure that you communicate that time with your liaison so we can make sure that your page is updated to reflect the correct time, because we want to make sure that your community knows and that people don't show up and the wreaths have already been placed or show up at the wrong time.
Okay. Also, when I am confused about the trucks, okay, when the truck comes, is this like 2 days before, a day before?
So the truck, we rely on volunteer trucking. So we have, hundreds of trucking partners that help us haul these wreaths, and they are delivering these, most of them for free for us. And so we kind of are relying on their schedule and their availability when they can pick up the wreaths and when they can deliver the wreaths. So they kind of tell us, but we do give them a 2-week window. So the wreaths can be delivered anywhere from the day before the ceremony to 2 weeks leading up to it. Anything beyond that 2 weeks, we're going to kind of call you and let you know, because that's not the normal there. And we would obviously want to make sure that your wreaths are going to be able to be stored, somewhere where they would not get too dry or anything like that. So you have a 2-week window you want to plan for. So you want to start thinking about that now, depending on how many wreaths that you have. Can you store them at the cemetery? They can be left outside. I personally store mine against the side of my house. I live in North Carolina. It's usually 70, 80 degrees that time of year. And, they've been here for a week before the ceremony before. They're fine, especially you have these boxes that have the nice holes in the top. So they're going to be able to breathe. You don't even have to worry about opening them up, as they're going to be okay to be stored. So just kind of think through your plan. The trucking, we ask the trucking partners to give you 24 hours notice before they deliver. Most of them, they've gotten really good about calling and scheduling those appointments, maybe even a week or two before, letting you know, like, hey, I've got your load. I'm so excited about this. I'm going to be like scheduling you this to deliver it on this day, this time, kind of this time frame, whatever. We do still have some that, don't quite always call as early as we would like. So, if you're getting nervous, you haven't heard anything, you can always reach out to your liaison. We can usually try to track down some information for you to help you find that out. But it is a 2-week window that you are kind of planning on having those wreaths.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie, I have a quick question. Did I understand you to say that you have yours delivered to your house and keep them in your backyard?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they right up against the side of my house. It gets, it's like shady, like most of the day. It's not, right out in the sun. But I only have like 75 wreaths. It's a smaller number, guys. I have a little tiny cemetery, and I just put them right outside my house. And last year they actually got watered really nicely because it like poured rain one night, and I was like, oh well, guess they're getting wet tonight. But yeah, I just keep them right outside, and I've never had any issues. So.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you're welcome. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, we will have this recording up and on our resource page by the end of the week. And like I said, for those of you who have a larger location, over 5,000 graves, keep an eye out in your email tomorrow for that invitation for the webinar at the end of this month. And if you have any questions, follow-up questions of this, always reach out to your liaisons. They're going to be a great resource to help you through all of this. All right. And you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk to you all next month.
Thank you.